In this video, I'm going to show you how to optimize your fascial connections so that you can run in the smoothest, most effortless way possible to get rid of any pains or injuries and just stop muscling your runs. Because I see way too many people doing that, just putting forth way too much effort into their running. And what that does is that it's going to put so much stress on your tendons, your other soft tissues, and ultimately cause all these pains and injuries. So in this video, I'm going to show you the key checkpoints that I look at when it comes to tapping into the fascial system of the body and really just integrating the whole chain of your body as a unit in order to achieve that fluid, effortless state of movement. So the first thing is going to be your breathing. So as I'm running, I want to make sure that I'm thinking about originating my breath from the deepest part of my abdomen. So I'm going to be breathing lightly and through the nose the entire time. And I'm going to think about breathing in a relaxed way so that my breath falls down into my pelvic floor, into the area where the diaphragm is. And I essentially want to feel almost like these areas are loaded, almost like the same way you would load your bicep or you would load any other muscle. So you want to feel that pelvic floor almost taking on the whole entire load, the weight of your upper body. You want to feel yourself almost kind of like drop into that pelvic floor, stay grounded into that pelvic floor, and then just breathe as deeply as you can. And if you've ever meditated before, it's going to be this thing where you're obviously not trying so hard so that you lose the purpose, you lose the intention of the task, but you also don't want to be so passive. Whereas you're going to be too relaxed as it pertains to running. You're going to be too relaxed. You're not really going to be actively striking the ground, actively moving your body to propel yourself forward. So it's that balance between relaxation and tension and being active. And that's something that can apply to literally any movement that you do. We're just talking about running here because that's what this video is about. But think about that concept, apply it to literally any athletic activity you do, even any of your lifting, and it's going to make you more efficient in your movement. It's going to make you have a more connected and resilient overall body. So that's the first point. You want to breathe as deeply as you can. I have an exercise for that. It's just literally sitting, breathing lightly. I could basically go over that in another exercise, but essentially you're just sitting there, you're breathing as lightly as you can, nice tall posture, but again, you're focused on relaxing the tissues of your body down straight, wrapping around your bones, your joints, down with, they're falling down with gravity. You're gonna feel that through your run. So again, you want to be nice and active and almost separating the joints from each other to essentially resist gravity. But at the same time, you wanna let the weight of your tissues, your soft tissues around the bones, relax straight down in line with gravity. And you wanna feel that through the entire chain of your body, going hand in hand with that light, deep breath that falls into the pelvic floor, falls into the diaphragm. And that's going to be the base of the movement, because we want to think of any movement as originating from the center. So I'm going to turn the treadmill on, and as I'm running, basically I want you guys to see that my torso is going to be nice and still, and there's going to be some rotation that's occurring through it from side to side. But for the most part, my torso isn't doing anything crazy. It's not gonna do anything exaggerated. So you want to be like a cylinder. You want to feel like everything is stacked on top of itself And like the torso is just stretching and dynamically moving ever so slightly, but you take that, you make those movements from that deep base of breathing. So you want to originate all that motion from the core. Once you have the core, the breathing situated, then all the limbs are really just gonna reflexively do their thing. If you let yourself fall into the pelvic floor, your glutes are gonna come on. And that's another point here, is that you don't want to feel like your glutes are actively tensioning, like you're squeezing a penny or anything else in between your butt cheeks. You don't want to feel that. You want to feel like the glutes are just kind of reflexively acting. If anything, you want to feel the inside of your hip as close to the hip socket, the bones, as possible, instead of just squeezing the superficial muscles. You look at any athlete, they're not really going to be squeezing any of their muscles super hard, super tight. They're going to be more reflexive, more relaxed in the way that they're actually moving their body and engaging their muscles. So that's another point there, is that you want to be nice and relaxed. And one way to do this through the hips, the next checkpoint that we'll talk about, is to really lock in through the hips, not in the superficial muscles again, but you want to bring your awareness to the deepest aspect of your hips, the hip sockets themselves, like where that thigh bone meets the pelvis. You want to bring your awareness into there, and you want to almost like hug, create like a little bit of tension through that area in the deepest part of your hip, and that's where you're gonna originate your movement from, and that's gonna go hand in hand with your pelvis being in a nice position. You don't want it overly dumped backwards. You also don't want it overly tilted, sorry, that was forwards. You don't want it overly tilted forwards, and you also don't want it overly tilted backwards. You wanna kind of find that balance where it's nice and neutral, and you find that hugging feeling in the joint. So you're gonna do that, and that's also lastly gonna go hand in hand with how the feet are contacting the ground. Based on how fast you're going, that's what's going to influence how your feet are contacting. The slower you go, the more there's gonna be a full foot contact. The faster you go all the way up to sprinting 100% intensity, the more you're gonna be landing on the forefoot, on the more towards the front of your foot. But if we're going at a casual speed, like let's say I'm just going at about like 60, 70%, I'll turn on the treadmill and show you guys here. Like, I'm gonna be going with a full foot contact. And just because I'm full foot contacting doesn't necessarily mean that I'm heel striking. The heel is really just meant to almost sense the ground and kind of just tell you or inform you of different data points on the ground, like how hard it is, how soft it is, what kind of activation that your foot will need to undergo in order to most optimally move on that surface. But you can see here the difference between me just brushing the ground with my heel, just rolling through it lightly, and me going like this. I feel this straight up in my knees. Like, you can see me kind of stomping. If you even slow down the video, I'm stomping through my knees. If I didn't have these cushiony shoes on right now, my knees, everything would feel terrible. But instead, slight difference here, I'm gonna slightly shift through the front of my foot. And that's gonna be a fuller foot contact. So hopefully you guys can see that very slight difference. But as I get faster and faster, what's gonna happen is my foot is gonna move towards the front. The pressure distribution as I run, as I contact, is gonna move towards the front of my foot. At a certain speed, what you're gonna see is that the forefoot touches, then the heel comes down, and then you move forward. Again, depending on your speed, there's gonna be different ways that the foot will kind of contact, but as a general understanding, just knows that you roll, or rather, you go more so from the front of the foot to contacting through the front of the foot as you get faster and faster. So that's the feet. Another point with the feet, you want to actively maintain tension through them because the fascia also runs through our feet, and that's essentially where we start in contact with the ground. So if your feet, no matter whether you're wearing cushiony shoes or barefoot shoes, you're completely barefoot or not, you want to make sure that you're tensioning your feet just the same way that you would tension any other muscle, your quads, your biceps, whatever. You want to tension your feet, and what that's going to do is it's going to help create this stiffness or just a lack of movement in the ankles that is going to essentially lock them almost at a 90-degree position. Now, there's a little bit of motion through the ankles, depending, again, on the speed that you're running at. The mechanics are going to be slightly different, but the principle is the same, that you want to have this stiffness through the ankle that essentially locks it in place with the foot, that tension that you're creating. Then you can feel that connection from the feet up to the hips, locking in, just like I was telling you guys before, locking into those hip sockets. Then up the chain, feeling the pelvic floor, the diaphragm originate your core movement and your breathing. And then lastly, paying attention to your spine, being nice and tall, elongated through the whole spine, but at the same time, making sure, again, you're nice and relaxed, letting all your tissues just fall down with gravity. So that's about it for the tutorial. That's how to run in a very connected fashion. Hope you guys enjoyed.